Let's see what Joe Khalil's hearing about all of this live in the North Lawn at the White House. To Brian's point, the Qataris say they were able to intercept these missiles. I know we've had some reporting out there that maybe the president had advance notice. What are we hearing from the Trump White House today so far, Joe?
Yeah, and this is a fluid conversation, obviously, Connell, so I'm checking my phone in real time for emails and updates from the White House. What we can confirm now is that President Trump is still in the West Wing as I'm talking to you. That meeting with his national security team was supposed to start about 2 hours ago, and it actually began coinciding with what Brian is talking about, with that barrage of missiles coming from Iran and into Qatar. So there has been reporting, Reuters confirmed that officials in the region say there was back channeling from the Iranians to the Americans before this strike happened. That intent would be to minimize harm there. Now, we haven't independently confirmed that from this White House. I've certainly been asking that question, but we can tell you that if that is in fact the case, Connell, that would mirror almost exactly what happened back in 2020, Iran responding to the United States for Qasem Soleimani's assassination, and that was sort of how all of that played out. What we can also confirm is that a defense official tells us that so far they know of absolutely no injuries, no casualties at all to any Americans, as we've been talking about there. So obviously, good news on that front. The question now becomes, what is the U.S. going to do in response, if anything? What is this White House going to decide? We know that President Trump, Connell, just as recently as last night, floated the idea of regime change, even through the day, as the vice president, the secretary of defense, the secretary of state had said this is explicitly not what the U.S. is trying to do. President Trump opened the door for it and said, actually, it may not be that bad if Iran continues in the same way in its action that we've seen over the last couple of years, that maybe it would be an inevitable thing, that there would be some regime change. And earlier this morning, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt came out, took questions about that, and also would not close that door. Basically said that, look, President Trump is keeping all options open, and she said, and I'm paraphrasing her, why wouldn't that be on the table? So, Connell, this is very fluid. We are waiting to see if we get any response directly from President Trump. We're watching the Truth Social feed. We don't know whether he will address cameras tonight or take any questions. Right. Certainly what we're hearing from our Capitol Hill folks is that they want some kind of briefing from the president on what happened over the last few hours. But will the public get any updates directly from the commander-in-chief? We will hopefully find out soon here.
Is he still going to this NATO summit, Joe? Was he supposed to leave tomorrow?
The plan is still to go, and obviously the summit is entirely different now, the backdrop being the Iranian strike that the U.S. launched and then this counterstrike now. Look, NATO by treaty is an attack on one means an attack on all. So everyone has stake in the game as President Trump heads over on Tuesday. And by the way, he had been asking for quite some time for all of the NATO countries to increase their defense spending to 5% of their GDP. They were actually planning on doing that, every country except for Spain. And a lot of that concern was about Ukraine and Russia. Remember, it was not about Iran. So now that you add this element to it, it's just another layer, another reason for NATO to be worried about and concerned about collective defense as President Trump heads over to Europe.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.